Good morning, everybody. My name is Casey Sampson. I'm one of the top agents here at Sampson Properties in Northern Virginia. And you have stumbled onto Coffee with Casey, where every month we sit down, take about an hour, hour and 20 minutes to talk about the real estate market, what's going on, basically from a seller and a buyer perspective. With me today is James Donegan, who is the president of Donegan Tree Service. You know, we were out the other night and we were at a Fleetwood Mac concert at the Tally Ho in Leesburg, right? So it's a Fleetwood Mac kind of retro, whatever, concert. By the way, it was phenomenal, right? It was pretty good.
Awesome time.
So during all these songs, we start talking trees because, you know, you look around the news every night and we see floods, and I think, well, don't live by the river. You see tornadoes, and it's like, well, don't live in Tornado Alley. You know, the fires, you know, because people live in fire zones, and all these horrific things that are happening to people. And we kind of think to ourselves, you know, life's kind of boring here in Northern Virginia. We don't really have a lot of floods, and it kills me because, you know, this time of year they're showing the big snowstorms and blizzards in Chicago. It's like, well, you know, you live in Chicago, you know. If the shoe fits, that's where the snow is, you know. So, you know, but in Northern Virginia, we don't expect to have a whole lot of Mother Nature attacks until this week reminded us that we live in a land of, at least in many parts of Northern Virginia, we live in a land of 60-foot high trees. And 60-foot high trees fall down. And 60-foot high trees can fall right into your bedroom or collapse on houses or, as we've seen, take out all the power lines, take out the TV stations, you know, our Fios or whatever. So, you know, we got in this conversation because in front of my house, I was telling James, in front of my house, there's a 60-foot high tree. It's a massive, you know, when I stood next to the root ball, it was 7, 8 feet tall. So I'm telling him about this, and we get into this fascinating conversation about trees and the predictability of when they're going to fall, what leads to these trees falling. Is there any way to detect, you know, the rot or the da-da-da-da-da? So we get in this big conversation, and we're missing the Fleetwood Mac concert because we're talking about trees. So I shut the conversation off because I said it's a fascinating conversation. Let's just shut it down right now. Let's do this on the air. Because trees are a big part of the real estate in this area. You know, when we come into a house, the type of trees they have, the size they have, the size trees, you know, all add or subtract from house. And a lot of times we'll see trees that, you know, a person doesn't want to buy a house because there's a big tree and they're afraid the tree is going to fall on their family, you know. So anyways, and I want to warn you now, we're up against Kathy Lee and Hoda, all right? So this is a tough time slot. So you better be good, man. Okay. But let's talk about some of the trees. Now, we just had this you know, massive thing. Everybody's driving up and down saying, hey, I'll take your trees down, take your trees down. I know that in the tree industry, there are certain certifications that you have to have. Can you go over, first of all, the guys that are taking our trees down, what are the certifications that arborists and some of these tree services would have?
Thank you, Casey, for inviting me down here to speak with you. And some of the qualifications that we recommend, you know, before you hire a tree surgeon or an arborist or whatever they call themselves, is the qualifications. Make sure that they're an ISA certified arborist. And I would recommend that you get a company that's been accredited through the Tree Care Industry Association.
So just like we'd have the National Association of Realtors or the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors, you have your own association of tree services. Exactly. Is it tree services or arborists? And let me ask you one question. So you got an arborist and a tree service. So you think tree service guys are taking trees down.
Exactly.
And arborists are trying to keep trees up. So it's a little bit of a conflict. So how does that work?
Well, my job, first of all, is when I go out to inspect a job site, when I do a hazardous tree evaluation on a job site, is we look at various situations, you know, to where a tree has a potential for falling on a house. And you're right, our job is to try and save trees. That's
right.
What we like to do.
Right.
The best thing that I could say to anybody that's out there that's got a lot of trees around your house is to make sure that anybody that you hire has the qualifications, and that
And they're a certified arborist.
And they're a
'Cause
certified
that's the number
arborist.
one thing, is that they got to be an arborist to do it, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, anybody could cut a tree down, but there's standards that we go by as being an accredited business. First of all, I'm a certified tree care safety specialist.
Okay.
And at our company, we rigorously conduct safety meetings all the time because we want our team to come home safe every day.
I had a person that we knew, a close family friend, husband, hit the chipper and he was gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
We
it's a
read it.
dangerous business, man. You watch guys take these trees out, they're 40 feet high and they're topping off trees. It's a risky business, isn't it?
Well, some of the things that me and you were talking about while we were standing there missing the concert the other night was like, if you're getting ready to purchase a new piece of property, I think it would be a really wise idea for either the new homeowner or the seller to get a hazardous tree evaluation done on their property before they even purchase the property or before they even sell the property, because there's been so many cases and so many times where I've shown up at a piece of property after somebody's bought the property and they've got these large expenses of like $3,000 to $5,000 to $8,000 on trees that need to come down that they wasn't aware that needed
Right.
any work at all.
Well, and this just follows suit with what we do many times, and we don't include the trees as much as we should, but we'll come in and find out how old the systems are, the roof, and we'll have roof inspections, and we'll have inspections on the HVAC units and things like that as a preliminary thing just before we sell the house, so we can certify that they're in good working condition. But you're right, we don't do enough of the trees. If there's a tree that's anywhere close, to get the arborist out. What does an inspection like that cost, where you come out, have it inspected, say, a certified arborist has said these trees are fine and there's not a safety hazard in here? What does something like that cost?
Well, it can range anywhere from $200 to $350 depending on the time. And what you get for that is that we'll walk around and we'll do a job site inspection on all the trees to check out their hazardous conditions. We'll document it. We'll make a detailed list of where each tree is located and what it needs and what it could potentially need in the future. And if it needs to come down, we're going to document it.
And it's not just the come down. A lot of times there's a widowmaker branch. You've got a dead branch up there. I know my wife is a stickler on having, getting all the widowmakers taken out of the trees. And the reason we call them widowmakers is because they fall at any time, and they can certainly make you a widow pretty quick. We had one smash a table in half, that fell out of the tree. So we don't have that anymore because I guess she gets them trimmed or something like that. But it's just not taking down a tree; it's taking down problem widowmaker branches that are up there, and maybe one of them is hanging over the house. Now, if you have a tree that's like this and you have one branch that's going towards the house, you take that off. Does that affect the rest of the tree?
Well, we only remove, we call them leaders, central leaders, massive leaders. Anyway, we'll only take off a leader if it's necessary.
And a leader is a big main branch.
It would be, for instance, like if I were to tell you, Casey, let me just take off your arm and then we'll see how well you function.
Is this my leader?
Yeah, that's your leader.
Well, you can have this one because this one sucks. I'm tired of rehab. Take it off.
Well, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but I use that kind of logic when I talk with a lot of people. Yes and no.
But if you lose the right arm, it's not going to affect the left arm. It's not going to affect the tree.
It could still function, but the stability of a tree, I think what you're trying to say is, like, if I take off a large leader to improve the safety hazard of the tree, would that be beneficial for it? And yes, it actually would, because we do that in many of cases.
Okay. So maybe it's not the tree, maybe it's just the leader on the tree that comes out. So let's talk about some predictive analysis, because how in the heck, first of all, why this time? Why do we have so many trees go down? I know there was 40-mile-an-hour winds, but I've seen these winds before. I mean, we've had these winds before. And that tree is, when it fell over, and thank God it fell at 3 o'clock, because if it fell at 12 o'clock, it kills the neighbor. If it falls at 6 o'clock, it kills us. And yet it fell at 3 o'clock and harmlessly just destroyed the other neighbor's side yard and another neighbor's yard. So is there anything you can do to predict when these trees could or possibly come down? I mean, it's impossible, right?
It is.
Okay.
Usually when I talk to my customers, and I get asked this question all the time, James, is that tree safe? Does it need to come down? And my reply to that is no tree is safe.
Okay.
Because they're so unpredictable when you get a northwest wind like we had. What happened was it rained through almost the whole month of January. I
Right.
mean, like twice a week it rained,
Right.
so the ground was so saturated. And up where I live at, up in Loudoun County, there was a lot of eastern white pine trees and tall Virginia pine trees that came down because there's a lot of shale and a lot of limestone up there. And with all the rain that we had and the shallow roots, all it took was a little bit of wind to blow those trees
Right.
over.
Right.
And it's probably the same around here in Fairfax County. A lot of shale, a lot of shallow-rooted trees.
Right.
And the ground was saturated.
So are poplar more vulnerable to going down? Is it oak trees? Is there any certain type of trees? I mean, you mentioned white pine in your area. Are there any specific trees in our area, like in Fairfax County, that is it the oaks? Is it the poplars? Which ones are the ones hitting the dirt, or is it a combination of all of them?
Gosh, it's
Still can't predict.
No, I can't predict that because every tree and every situation is different. That's why
Okay.
it's so crucial to have a hazardous tree evaluation and an inspection done on your property.
Right.
But I mean, I don't use scare tactics when it comes to selling. I just use facts, and we do, like I said, we do a rigorous inspection when we do these hazardous tree evaluations. But most of the trees that went down in this storm were like Leyland cypress, eastern white pines, Virginia pines, stuff that had a lot of leverage up in the top. And with a little bit of wind and the ground being so saturated, I mean, we could have had less wind than that and a lot. Actually, this storm was probably, if I had to put it up there in a category of 1 to 10, it would probably be a 2 as far as the trees went down.
Really?
More trees went down
In the
this
derecho?
storm
Oh.
than there was in the derecho that we had.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was, my phone rang off the hook. There was
Right.
so much, so
And
many.
do you think it had more to do with the see? As I remember, I don't remember the derecho. I don't remember whether the leaves were on the trees, but a lot of people said it would be worse if the leaves were on the trees as opposed to not being on the trees. True statement or false? Or has it got more to do with how saturated the ground was with water than how many leaves were on the trees?
It was the ground being saturated. And you have to think about it. All the pine trees, all the Leyland cypress that went over, all the arborvitae, all the evergreens. It was a lot of evergreens that went over because they keep their foliage all season.
Right, right.
But I do agree with that. If the oak trees and the poplar trees had more weight up in the top of them, you would have seen a lot more damage.
A lot more go down?
A lot more damage.
All right. Well, then that gets to going up and maintaining your trees.
Exactly.
Okay? Maintaining the weight that's sitting up there. So do you get a lot of people coming in going, you know, it's a beautiful tree. I doubt it's going to die, but we got to get some of the weight off the top of that. Because I'm telling you, I can't even express how big this tree was that went down. But the top of it was just massive. I mean, it was just massive. So would you come in and thin these trees out every 2 years? Or what's your time range? I mean, if you had, how often would you recommend somebody inspect their trees to see either widowmakers, dead branches, what do you call them, arms, or what do you call them?
Leaders.
Leaders,
Yeah.
leaders. See how many, you know, whether you got to take down a leader or not. I mean, how often do you think you should go out and inspect these trees?
We recommend to most of our clients, and we have over 1,000, almost 2,000 clients, but we do a job site inspection. And by the way, if you're a regular client of Donegan's, it's a free inspection. Just give us a call. I'm not putting it out there for everybody to call.
Well,
me,
no,
but-
no. That's important because
Yeah.
a lot of times you'd be watching something and going, yeah, where do I go to get this done? So it's Donegan Tree Service. You're in Aldi, right?
Yeah,
Aldi?
we're in Loudoun County.
Loudoun
yes.
County. Okay, all over Loudoun County. And it's Donegan Tree Service. And you have a Facebook page for
I have a Facebook.
your group.
Yeah, I have a Facebook page for Donegan's Tree Service Group.
Okay.
And we do live, we're in the process of doing live videos ourselves. Yeah.
This is your first.
Yeah, this is my first.
This is it.
This is my very first video. I'm excited.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well,
Makeup.
I got really excited when I seen Casey for the first time doing a video, so it inspired me. But yes, I recommend to our clients at least once every 3 years. But when a storm comes through like we just had, I think it's very important to get your trees, to get on a list with an arborist that you trust and get your trees inspected, because, I mean, a lot of times, this is what happens. This is what happens to a lot of people.
Right.
They come out of their house, it's springtime, it's like a bear just coming out of his cave.
Right.
And they're looking around, they're thinking about their lawns, they're thinking about their deck, they're thinking about their summer vacation.
Right.
Thinking about their kids. They're thinking about everything except for
Looking up.
looking up
Yeah, I
looking
can't
up
look
at
up
their
that
trees.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, let us do the work for you. or
Well,
hire an
let's
arborist.
use this. Here's the deal. Let's use this storm
Okay.
as a warning that you have to, every 2 to 3 years, get your trees inspected, have somebody come out, have an arborist come out and look at them, thin them out, give you a hazardous assessment, whether we really do have a problem or not.
Exactly.
This is a to-do list, by the way. Sellers, if we have any problems or any issues, and realtors, if we have any problems or any issues, let's get an inspection done up front, because we really do lose clients if people come up and go, I'm not going to put my babies in that room because that tree is going to fall down.
Exactly.
And when you have a home inspection, if there's anything close, a home inspector is going to say, take that tree down. So
Exactly.
here's the main reason why you do this. A home inspector that knows pretty much nothing about trees will come out and say, you got to take that tree down, when in fact an arborist will come out and say, no, you don't have to take that tree down. Now, had a home inspector had an arborist report prior to his inspection, he never would have made that statement. He never would. We call it creating crisis. A real estate agent, a selling agent, or a home inspector will have a created crisis. Let me get away from trees for just one second so you
sure.
can catch a breath and talk about a creative crisis. So we tell everybody, price your houses so you have multiple buyers. Then if some home inspector asks for something stupid, or a realtor asks for something stupid, we just go to the buyer number 2 and nothing ever happens. So we had a home, it was priced a little high, and they get one contract. Sure enough, a home inspector comes in, and he wants a 35-year-old addition. Fairfax County doesn't have records to go back 35 years. He wanted it re-permitted, re-inspected, and the county doing a final inspection, which would have cost the sellers $20,000, $30,000. Now, that's what happens when you only have one contract. So instead of saying, forget it, I'm going to buyer number 2, buyer number 2 wasn't sitting there. So that's, again, an emphasis why you need multiple buyers when you're selling a house, because you're at the mercy of some of these knuckleheads that do things like this. So anyways, we said no, and we put it back on the market, and you don't really want to go back on the market. You want to go to buyer number 2. So this created crisis was on the part of the realtor who recommended and the home inspector that recommended, and they asked us to do something that was totally ridiculous. Well, when you have a homeowner hear from his inspector, you need to take this tree down. Well, taking a tree down, a 40-foot poplar tree, is about $3,000.
Yeah, it's not going to be cheap.
It's not cheap. And the bigger the, I think it cost them $9,000, maybe because of the timing of that big tree going down, $9,000 to get rid of that tree. So, I mean, you're talking about a home inspector, and once he tells a buyer that you got to take this tree down, you got to take that tree down, or you're going to blow this sale. Again, created crisis or not, is he a tree expert or not? I don't think he's an arborist. So we would call out after the fact an arborist to dispute this, but in fact, it would be better to call the arborist beforehand so then it would not plant the seed, because once an inspector says, got to take that tree down, he's not going back on his word. So we want to kind of help them out with, hey, we've inspected the HVAC, we've inspected the roof, we've inspected the trees, here's all the documentation you need. So that gives him a little help when he's doing a home inspection. So, I mean, we have 1,900 realtors at Sampson Properties. We've done, I don't know how many thousand listings so far this year. So if you're a realtor and you think there's any question whatsoever, then call your local arborist out there. Donegan Tree Service is the one that we use. And again, I've known James for, 20, 30 years. And, our list of people we refer people to is small because if they screw up, it's on us because we recommended them. So, we're really careful with what electrician we send out, what plumber we send out, what tree people we send out. So, I think we've had a wake-up call on our team The rest of the realtors should have a wake-up call. If you're a seller, this is a wake-up call for you. Have your trees inspected. And with that, let me go back to a couple things and remind me that we got to talk about our favorite trees. And I want to talk about some of the best trees that I think are easy maintenance, best showpieces, that kind of thing. But I want to talk about the statement you made, which stopped me in my tracks, and I said, okay, we can't talk anymore. We got to have this online. You said that putting mulch around a tree is bad for the tree.
Oh, yes.
Okay? So why is mulch around a tree bad?
You remembered that conversation from the other
You know what? It was a few Jack Daniels in me, but it stuck in my head, and that's when I stopped the conversation. And I'll tell you why. So here I've got a trained arborist who's telling me that you shouldn't put mulch around a tree because it's bad, and he had reasons, but I didn't listen to that. You said it, and I said, that's it. But in Ashburn, you're required to mulch around your trees. I mean, we got a homeowner association said they didn't have mulch around the tree. So I think they required, I'm investigating that now, they require mulch around trees. Well, if an entire community, let's take Ashburn. I mean, those trees aren't that big yet. It's only a 20, 30-year-old community.
Exactly.
But they're going to be big. They're going to be 40, 50, 60 years old. And you have trees that have a lifetime of having mulch around them. So what's the detriment of having mulch around a tree?
People have gone crazy with mulching.
Yeah.
And especially out in the Ashburn communities where I live at. I call it mulch crazy gone wild.
Right.
What's happened, it's creating a crisis actually for the tree care industry, for the trees themselves, not the industry, but for the trees. What I've seen out in the Loudoun County, this is actually going to be one of the videos that I was going to shoot, an educational video. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
It's a good time to talk about it. But one of the things that I've noticed out in Ashburn, Brambleton, it's going on pretty much everywhere. I mean, I see people mulching trees that have a 20-inch caliper. So,
dude, that 60-foot high tree was in a bed of all the stuff. I mean, it was mulched, And I'm just wondering how that has an effect on it,
Well, what happens? Well, when one homeowner sees another homeowner mulching their trees, they obviously think that it's good.
It looks better. Look,
Yeah.
look,
It
to an
does look
untrained
better.
guy, to an untrained person, I'm looking at it saying mulch that damn tree because it looks scraggly with the big roots going all over the place. But if you cut a bed and you throw some mulch, it looks neat, it looks clean. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. I tell you what happens. Each year that they put mulch on a tree, the mulch starts breaking down and it creates a compost. And then the roots that grow from the base of the tree, they're called fibrous roots. Those fibrous roots will get entangled in the mulch. See, roots are opportunists. They look for airflow and they look for water. Two of the things they look for.
Okay.
So they'll start coming up to the surface of the tree, and then they'll start circling.
Because the mulch holds the water in and holds the compost, right?
Exactly.
So
they'll start circling around the tree, The tree, the tree base will keep growing, and what happens is eventually the roots will girdle the trunk of the tree, cause a girdling root on the base of the tree.
We can't have girdling around here.
No.
You can't have girdling. This is bad.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the thing about it is, James, you use the word crisis, right?
It is.
So who's standing up for the trees? I mean, is anybody going to these associations, and I guess maybe that's the news of this show, is that we've got entire populations now doing something they think is not going to hurt the trees. Nobody knows it hurts the trees.
Yeah.
But until you said that, it never dawned on me that mulching around a tree causes the root systems, to screw up the root systems, and before you know it, you got 50-foot high trees with, what did you call them?
Girdling roots.
Girdling roots.
Yeah, it's like having a loop around your neck.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And it strangles out the vascular cambium is what it does.
You can't have the vascular cambium strangled out.
No,
have
it's the life.
They teach you all these big words.
Yeah.
And here I just thought you were a good-looking fisherman that cut down trees from time to time. And you know all these big words.
Yeah. Well, it strangles out the vascular cambium, and let me make it clear that a tree will not live to be 40 or 50 years old. This is going to start happening in the Ashburn area probably sometime in the next 5 years. People are going to notice that the tops of their trees are starting to die back because they're not getting, the sap stream is not flowing up to the top because it's being strangled out at the base.
Right.
And then trees are going to start declining, and eventually they're going to either topple over or start dying, and people are going to wonder what's going on. And
Right.
I'm telling you, it's going to hit like a massive crisis in the tree care, people that own trees.
Right. Well, so
As I say this, I do want to say that if you're a landscaper, please don't hate me for talking about mulching, over mulching, but it's a crisis in Loudoun County.
but a lot of times, I mean, back 20 years ago, we just didn't have this. I mean, you weren't seeing a lot of mulch around trees, but now they're actually making the trees into the beds.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
I am. I mean, we're saying to do that. And you never realize that this has got long-term bad health for the tree themselves.
It does.
So we kind of have to do something. Well, and I think the first thing to do is bring it to the attention of the homeowners associations in Loudoun County and some of the bigger ones like Ashburn and things like this. This should be something in the Washington Post and something in, you know, you call Dave Fascioli in the Sun Gazette and you start getting articles done. You know, somebody's got to say, you know, the British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming. And they've got to start putting everyone on notice that this is going to be a long-term problem for these trees.
It is.
Because I do think that it is within the last such and such years that we have made a big deal out of more mulch, you know, bedding it out, cutting it up, because it just looks better, you know. Well, let's you know, let me ask you then. So my favorite tree is a river birch, okay?
Exactly.
And anytime you have a river birch in a house and you put lights underneath it at night, you have the most beautiful house in the neighborhood, okay? Now, they're usually in beds.
Exactly.
Does it still hurt those kind of trees? Do the river birches get hurt by that? I mean, do all trees get hurt by that?
All trees, any trees that you plant. I tell you another, I mean, like I said, I don't want to pick on the landscapers.
I look, you know what? I'll have Tommy McVean on from Merrifield Garden Center, and we'll have him on later. And he's a genius, and he's the greatest guy of all time.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it. You know, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But let's just focus on what's in the best interest of the trees, because here we have a bunch of evergreens that you plant, and of course they're all mulched in and all. Some make it and some don't. Does the mulch affect those evergreens?
Don't mulch evergreens after you plant them for the first year. After you plant your trees, you should take the mulch away after they've been in the ground for their second year. The only purpose that we mulch trees for when you plant a newly planted tree is to retain moisture around the trunk of the tree for the first year while the tree's getting healed into the ground.
Okay. Okay. So let me see if I got this straight. So evergreens go in, mulch goes on. First year,
Right.
keeps the moisture in, keeps
Right.
them wet, keeps them damp. Then clear the mulch out after that.
Take it away.
Take it away.
Yeah, it's better to if you feel the need to have to mulch a tree.
Yeah.
Mulch out, don't mulch up.
Right.
Yeah, you
Because a lot of times they'll tell you to mulch up like this, so the water will flow away from the you know,
from the stem.
from the stem.
Yeah.
Right. So, but what you're saying is get the mulch away from the stem.
Yeah. When people mulch trees, this is what happens. When they start creating these mounds.
Mounds, right.
Yeah, really what happens, the reason you put mulch around trees is to retain the moisture in the ground for the root system.
Right.
And when you start mounding that mulch up, if you think about it, Casey, when it rains and the water comes down and it hits that mulch, where is it going? It's going actually away from the tree.
Right.
So it's really not doing it any good at all.
Right. Right. So just not too much of a mound.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it should be a little. We have gentle slopes. I mean, when we're doing home inspections, they want the water to flow away from the houses. So that's why they have, you know, the landscape will be up higher near the house as it flows away from the house. So what you're saying is it's the same thing with the trees, it's pushing it out.
Exactly.
But I would think, and the theory is, which is obviously wrong, is that the water goes out, which pushes the roots out. You know, but that's not accurate.
No.
Yeah, well.
Well,
I'm a good guy at selling houses. Maybe not so good at keeping trees, Maybe not so good at saving trees.
Yeah.
That's why I have a professional with me.
Well,
Because-
it's a crisis, and it's
Okay.
going on everywhere. And,
All right.
and if you want to look at, if you've had your tree planted within the last 3 to 5 years, there's probably still hope for your newly planted tree.
Okay.
What you could do is, it's called a root collar excavation. You can actually pull the mulch back away from the trunk of your tree.
Okay.
Cut the little roots and the little fibrous roots they feel like lawn. When you pull them away, it's almost like you're pulling away grass. Those are fibrous roots.
Okay.
And you could take those away, it's not going to hurt the tree. But
Okay.
any little 1-inch diameter roots that you see growing around the trunk of the
That's
tree,
what's gonna
you can
create
cut
that.
those. Cut
Okay.
those, take the mulch away, and just put like a light layer of mulch
Let's do
down the
this. Let's,
1st year.
let's just stop this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. And I don't know what to clip and cut.
Yeah.
Let's just say that
Okay.
you're going to have a service that somebody can call you up and say, hey, look, I got mulch all over my trees. I want you to clean this stuff out. I want you to clip these roots and do it for a tree for X amount of dollars so my trees
Exactly.
don't die.
Yeah.
But basically the bottom line is down the road trees are going to die.
They are.
And they're
Over
gonna-
mulching.
In the top, over mulching.
Yeah.
So we got to knock it off. All right. So some of the other trees that your favorite trees, like if you were going to put in some trees, I think mine are, I love the Bradford pears, but you can't put in a Bradford pear because a Bradford pear is going to split like a stock. So you drive down the road and you used to live on Linda Marie Drive, and every day you'd come by, if it was wind, there are the Bradford pears all over the street, So, so what are some of the best trees that you would recommend when people are going? I'm talking about flowering trees around a property. Some of the most hardiest, some of the, that look the best. Which one are your favorites?
Well, I like the Yoshino cherry. They're the same ones that were planted down around the tidal basins that were brought over from the Japanese.
Okay.
It's a real poplar tree. I like the yellowwood.
Well, neither one of those I've heard of before. I haven't heard either one of those. I've never heard of yellowwood, and I thought I knew all the cryptomerias and all those good trees, but I didn't. I've never heard of a yellowwood.
I like the Ohio buckeye. That's a horse chestnut tree. I've got so many of my favorite. Probably the hardiest, strongest tree that you could plant around here in this area is the redwood, or excuse me.
Redbud.
The
No?
redbud is a native tree, and they do well around here as far
Yeah.
as a flowering tree goes. But for a hardwood, a red oak, a white oak, a lot of the maples like a red sunset, an October glory, those are good trees. But for the flowering trees, I think the prettiest ones are probably the weeping cherry tree.
Yeah, the weeping cherries.
Everybody loves those.
Well, let me ask you something. I've had weeping cherries, and they got disease, and they really didn't get that. Some are massive, some are not. How would you take care of a weeping cherry tree? I mean, is there anything you can do? You see sap pouring out of it and all this stuff. I mean, is there any way to save trees like that when they're going down?
That comes right back to having your trees inspected like every couple
Yeah.
years.
You hear that, Carol? You blew it.
Yeah, every couple
blame
years.
it on my wife.
Yeah, every couple years you should have your
Have
trees.
inspect-
I
yeah.
mean,
Who does that? Arborist, Merrifield? Who do you call to get something like that done? Do you guys come out and inspect all the
yes,
trees?
we do an inspection, an on-site inspection. We'll evaluate everything.
Even trees that, like, we'll have a problem where sometimes have black things on the leaves
Black
and things like
sooty
that.
mold.
Black sooty mold.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's
So much to cover on
I
trees.
swear to God, James, I keep thinking I'm a bright guy, but I'm really the dumbest damn guy you're ever going to meet. I swear I'm so stupid. Because here we have thousands of dollars of trees. Massive trees that could fall on our house. And do we ever have them inspected for their health, for growth, for anything wrong with them, or for the fact that they may be falling down, or for somebody telling me, hey, idiot, stop mulching your trees. Do you tell people to get that mulch away from their trees when you inspect?
I do.
You do?
Exactly. Oh, yes. We have a job right now, right down in Oakton, where a lady's been mulching. Never was told anything about it, and we did a root collar excavation on it, showed it to her.
All right, so let's stop right now. It's called a root collar excavation. Root collar excavation. Somebody write that down, because I don't know. That's what I got to say. When I need that, that's what I need. A root
Exactly.
collar excavation. Because, really, if you plan on being in a house for a long time, you don't want to baby this tree for 20 years and then have it die on you. So you got to take care of your trees. Right? So go back to your lady in Oakton. She's doing a root collar excavation.
A root
right?
collar excavation. She had no idea what
Yeah.
was going on with her trees. And I told her, when you plant a tree that's like 2 to 3 inches in diameter, it's probably going to cost you $400 to $500. And as it grows, if you've had it in the ground for 4 or 5 years, it increases the value of the property.
Yep.
The health of the tree. And in a lot of cases, people have no idea what's going on down below.
Yeah.
And we were there. We were actually there, believe it or not, saving a 200-year-old silver maple tree. Somebody had come onto her property and told her that the tree needed to come down. And so
From Culpeper.
I don't know.
Pull
where
the
they
truck
were
up from Culpeper, go, that tree's got to come down.
Yeah, and he classified himself as an arborist.
Okay.
And
Okay.
anyway, so we came along. We ended up saving the day, saving the tree.
Yeah.
And then I noticed over mulching on our trees. A lot of
Right.
times I won't even get into that conversation with them when I'm talking about their trees. But
You have to.
Yeah,
If you know it's imperiling the tree,
exactly.
really you have no choice, right?
Well, I walked around it, and I looked at my watch, and I'm thinking, God, do I have time really to spend with this lady to talk to her about her trees?
Yeah.
And I thought, yes, somebody needs to tell
We're
her.
professionals. You got to tell them.
Yeah. So I love.
You know, we're
trees.
getting to we are actually getting to the age where life is fun. You know,
Yeah.
because before when you're young and you tell somebody something, they're like, you don't know what they're talking about. But now you don't care whether they listen to you or not. But I'm going to tell you what you have to know.
Exactly.
Like we're going for a listing and somebody will say, well, yesterday happened, and they said the house worth $700,000. Yeah, well, it's worth $650. And that's just what you're going to have to do. And here's why you're going to do it. Yeah. So it is funny. You get to a certain age where you just tell them the truth and don't stop. You know, we don't have time for BS. We're too old for that nonsense.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you just tell them how it is, you know. Well, so I think, and again, guilty as charged. You know, we're watching this evergreen that we spent a lot of money to put in, and we think it's dying. And instead of having somebody come out and inspect it and tell us what to do with it, you know, we just watch it die. So, and again, I blame my wife. I sell real estate for a living. I should have her. She's supposed to watch this stuff. So, anyway, she's home throwing things up against the wall right now. But yes, we will call you. We will come out. We will inspect. Take a look at these trees. Find out why we've got this black stuff on some. Why we're not getting, you know, the one that the red buds. We got a big red bud, but you know, some years is good years, some years is bad years. But it's in a mulch bed. You know, maybe that's the problem. They're in a mulch bed.
Possible girdling root.
I got a girdling root. I'll be sleeping tonight. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and go, did he say girdling? So anyways, all right, we'll take care of that. All right?
Just remember that trees add to your property value, so you need to take care of them.
Yeah.
And one other thing, if anybody wants to go onto my website, Donegan's Tree Service, I wrote an article strictly on girdling roots, and it's on our blog page.
Okay.
So if you want any more information on it, it's all written out right there.
Okay. You really have to, because I will say that when I walk up to a house, I'll identify the trees. Oh, you got some nice dogwoods over here. You got some nice river birch over there. You know, there's a scrub pine that, you know, this should be taken out. Now, the pine trees, and you said white pine. So I just know them as pine trees. I'm not sure what's white pines, but a lot of them are like ugly, you know, scraggly kind of trees, and a lot of times like get rid of that pine tree. Are you saying a lot of those were what's going down in Loudoun County during the
Loudoun
thing?
County, eastern white pine trees and the Virginia native.
What is the most
pine.
common pine tree that you see all over, like in Northern Virginia? Is
Well,
that the white pine?
It's actually the Virginia pine. As you're traveling down the road and looking off to the left and right, going down Route 50, most of the pine trees here are Virginia native pines.
Okay.
They have all their foliage up in the top.
Yeah.
Nothing down at the bottom.
Okay.
A lot of ground gets soaked and wet, and then all you need is a little bit of rain, and a lot of them come
And down
over.
they go down.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Now, I noticed though that in North Carolina, when we're down there playing golf, that they don't have any branches for 20, 30 feet high. Yeah, I mean, they're huge, so you can just come right out of the woods. Are those different pine trees than we have in Virginia?
Those are loblolly pines.
Loblolly pines.
Yeah,
Yep, you're right.
so
Those are
many-
loblolly pines.
There's so many. There's
They're a golfer's best friend.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many different varieties of pine trees.
The main time I learn about trees is when I play golf. Because I'm usually in those trees and I'm figuring out how to get out of those damn trees.
I'm right there with
I
you.
like loblolly pines. I like loblolly pines. All right. So let's just go through real quick on pruning some of these flowering trees. And I'm just going to whip through some of them real quick. Dogwoods don't really need a lot of pruning, right? I mean, they're pretty strong and hardy, and they're all over the place. Do you think that some of the dogwoods don't grow up bigger because they're having that gurgling issue?
Actually,
Or
most dogwoods,
they're wild,
the white, the yellow, the white and the pink dogwoods, and then the Coosa dogwoods, most of those only reach a height of about 25 feet anyway.
anyways, right.
Their full maximum. And I very rarely see any of them that
We don't see those pop out, right?
No.
Okay. Now, the difference between, let me go back to some of the bigger trees. The difference between poplar and oak. Okay, a lot of times you can't, normal people can't tell them apart, which is the poplar and which is the oak. Which one is the one that's staining the roofs all the time? You'll see roofs with a black stain on them. Are those poplar trees that are dropping things on that roof, or do you know? Or am I outside of your wheelhouse?
You're going to like this conversation we're getting ready to have.
Okay.
If it's a poplar tree, poplar trees get these insects. They're called honeydew aphids.
Okay.
And they secrete from their, and that's the droppings that drop on your roof. And eventually.
So are you telling me the black marks on those roofs are from bugs that are coming out of those poplar trees pooping on that roof, and that's what gives it the black stains?
Yeah, and it gets on your holly trees, on the upper parts of their leaves. It looks like a black sooty mold, but yes, they secrete that from their, and it drops
It's
on.
bug poop.
It is, exactly.
Now I know.
Yeah.
I'm glad before I died I learned stuff like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's caused from a honeydew aphid.
A honeydew aphid.
Yep.
And they stain roofs, and they make them look old, and they make them look terrible. Can you power wash those things off there, I wonder?
Yeah.
I'm sure we can go up and power wash them all. So, poplar, bad. Oak, good.
Well, I love trees, don't get me wrong,
right.
but poplar trees are susceptible to the honeydew aphids. And yet, man, it'll get sticky, sappy, honey-type substance all over your windshield of your car, everywhere.
So when you go out, the best thing to do is identify, is that an oak or a poplar tree?
Exactly.
Is this, what are these trees that are in our backyard? Mm-hmm. And also when I had an arborist out, it had a lot to do with the wind on these trees and how they grew up. So if you have a home site and you have a bunch of trees and you cleared out a bunch of big trees to make room for the home site, it does affect the other trees, doesn't it? Because now they're susceptible to winds that they've really hadn't had to deal with over the years. Is that correct?
That's a really good question, because there's been so many times where I've went to cleared areas. It creates a wind tunnel, or it shifts the wind tunnel. And what happens, if you get a northwest wind and you've cleared out a southeast corner of your property, now all those trees are susceptible to
for the first time.
For wind, exactly.
And basically their root system has grown up based on what it used to be. And now it's gone, so it doesn't have, if it was always like that, then the root system would be stronger, wouldn't it? On one side, because that's just the way it grew up, bracing itself for that. So you have to be careful when you knock trees down, that if you take down one tree, you really have to figure out what it's going to do to that tree and that tree behind it, right?
Exactly.
So in your calculation of when I take a tree down, that could affect other trees, right? In the pod.
In the scheme of things, you have to remember. I love trees. They're very personal to me. Trees develop relationships.
Yeah.
And I think when you take down one tree, sometimes you create more of a hazard than you even realize you're doing.
And I think that's what stopped us that one time. We were on West Meredith Street, and they wanted the tree taken down, and the arborist came out, and he said, if you take this tree down, those two trees back there will fall, because they're going to create a whole new wind pattern. They're not ready for it, and blah, 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 blah. So you got to be careful about taking down trees on how they affect the other trees, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, it's 10:15. We're supposed to get out of here by 10 o'clock, but that was a pretty damn interesting conversation.
Yeah, we didn't talk about bass fishing. Darn it.
We'll do that on the water. We're going down to the river and do some bass fishing. James is also a professional fisherman, and he's going to take us out and do some catch some of those smallmouth bass or bigmouth bass.
Largemouth.
Largemouth bass.
We're going to have fun no matter what.
We're going to get some big boys. Now, you said Billy had a question, Julie. I'm looking at my lovely assistant.
Oh, she wanted to know about the mulch on the trees.
So I think we banged that out, right? We got that good? Okay, guys. All right, I want to thank you for tuning in to Coffee with Casey. I hope everybody's learned something today. The main things are that we really are going to have a crisis on the way. Over the last 10 to 15 years, we have been mulching our trees. That is bad for the trees. That creates a
Girdling
root, and it will eventually affect the tops of your trees and eventually kill the trees. So we have major problems in Ashburn or some of these subdivisions that have a requirement of mulching around their trees, which is actually harming the trees. And we need to discuss this with the homeowner association. So, in the future, we also need any reporters, news people, the Post, the Journal, I'm showing my age, Sun Gazette. We really need to kind of get word out. So you need a publicist, bud. All right. It's
It's going to be a crisis.
I'm telling you, when you said that to me, it froze me in my thing. It's like you think you know everything, and then all of a sudden you don't know anything. And that's why in the bottom of the book I wrote, it's like it's what you learn after you know it all. Really, it's what you learn after you know it all. And that's a powerful. So we had a powerful day today. I really appreciate you coming in. It's Donegan Tree Service, James Donegan, the person that we would trust to come out and do these trees. For all you realtors, pretty important that we inspect other things before we list a house. If there's any issues on trees, get them out. Homeowners, if you're having problems with your trees, don't be lazy like me. Get an arborist out there to take a look at it, find out what's wrong, and he's probably going to find out that you got too much mulch around your trees. And then you would do the
Root collar excavation.
Root collar excavation. I hope Carol, I hope you wrote that down.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to get that done.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, James. I appreciate you coming out.
Good
We'll
to see you,
you,
buddy.
We'll see you out on the river.
All right, thank you.
All right. That concludes another edition of Casey Sampson Coffee with Casey. My name is Casey Sampson from Casey Sampson team here at Sampson Properties. See you guys next month. Bye now.